It's that time once again, your favorite time of the week, Faith and Sport Time on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also broadcasting across Radio Maria. So hello to all of our listeners on the Radio Maria Network. Glad to have you tuned in for a brand new edition of Faith and Sports. I'm Chris, the producer of the show, and your host every week for Faith and Sport. Here he is, the one, the only Dr. John Acquaviva.
Thank you, folks, for joining us on the show today. No matter how you're listening to us, no matter where you're listening to us from, or even when you're listening to us. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I do the exercise science thing at the local university here, and then once a week I come down here, and Chris and I play around with the title of Faith and Sport. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to discuss all things sports, including our hit and miss with Carlos Herrera. He's going to join us in just a couple minutes. We're going to do weekend headlines, bring you up to date on everything going on in the world of sport, and obviously not everything, but some of the things. Guests are going to include after the second half, or in the second half of our show, Ed Billick. That name sounds familiar, right, Chris?
That's right.
Who's Ed Billick? You have to remind me.
He's our monthly special guest host on
That's
Faith
right.
and Sport.
That's right, and he's decided to come on because he loves the Masters. He loves everything that's going on in the world of sport. He said he's going to join us for a couple minutes. And then after him, we're going to have a brief conversation with Jeff Balister, who is the author of God Doesn't Play His Zone Defense. He was on the show a couple weeks ago, at least scheduled, and we had some technical difficulty. Do you remember that?
That's right, yeah.
And by the way, whenever anybody says technical difficulty, it is a whole umbrella of problems. It could mean that we gave them the wrong number. They had the wrong number for us. We hung up on them. The microphones weren't working. They forgot to call in. They forgot they were on the program, whatever the case is. Anyway, those two guys are going to join us in the second half of the show, and then we have a special segment today. It's called John A's PGA Golfer of the Week. So I'll let you guys in on that one toward the end of the show. In fact, at the very end of the show.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that will be interesting, brother. I'm telling you, you're going to be in stitches. Hey, brother, listen, it continues to be Easter week. I hope you had a good Easter week. This is the second week of Easter. I think everything was going okay until the Atlanta Braves had that brutal call go against them in last night's Sunday night baseball
I was
game.
really upset along with a lot of other Atlanta Braves fans. And also the manager of the Braves, Snicker, he was also really upset. I mean, he even threw his hat. He was so upset.
That's right. That's when you know somebody's mad, right? They can say, oh, darn peanuts, right? Mm-hmm. But if they throw their hat, that's when somebody's really mad.
You know it's all over.
One of the things, Ed's going to be in studio next week, and partly the reason he's going to be on today is that it's a prep for him to be in studio next week as the periodic co-host. And one of the things I want to talk to him about, and we're going to have a good conversation, because I want his insight. I think he's a good, insightful guy, and I want his insight on why on earth, even after video replay, referees and umpires still make terrible calls. Because that one last night wasn't like, well, it could go either way. It was, he did not touch the bag. And folks, excuse us for, not if you don't know about the situation. It was a 6-6 game. The Phillies tried to score a run. The umpire said he touched the base and didn't get tagged.
In the ninth inning.
In the ninth inning. It just ended up winning the game. It was unbelievable. Anyway, we'll have a bigger conversation about that, because it definitely ties into this show, Faith and Sport. By the way, this is Faith and Sport, where we apply our faith to all aspects of sports. Whether you're a fan, whether you're an athlete, whether you're an administrator or referee, this is the show for you. So if you're a faithful person, if you love sport, this is the show. That's why I developed this show. By the way, welcome to our Carolina Catholic Radio listeners. Welcome to the Radio Maria listeners. Thank you to all of you guys for joining us today.
And I just want to say it's great to be back in the studio after missing last week. I was really under the weather, wasn't able to make it, but good thing our good buddy Brant was able to step in for me. But I'm glad to be back this week.
Absolutely. It's good to see you, brother. Brant did a good job, but I'm glad to see you, and everything's kind of like so-called back to normal.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Listen, before Carlos comes on, we're going to talk about our hit and miss and a couple other things going on in the world of sport. I have news to announce. Folks, I've mentioned just every once in a while that I have a couple books out. One of them is called Improving Body Image Through Catholic Teaching. And I've been fortunate enough to one of the big Catholic publishers, Tan Books, also St. Benedict Press, they're known as, has released over the last couple of years a paperback book of this version, Improving Body Image Through Catholic Teaching. And then they released an ebook But recently, they released an audio book. And I want to give a special thank you to Tan for doing that, because it's just one more avenue in which people can read, I think, this important message that God has something to say about how we look and who we are as physical beings. And also a thank you to Kevin Spaulding, who was the audiobook narrator for this. I had a chance to meet him a couple weeks ago, and he told me the brief story. He came across this book, went to the people at TAN and said, listen, I think we should add this to the list of audiobooks that we offer. And they said yes to that. And so thank you to Kevin. Thank you to TAN for doing that. So, folks, Improving Body Image Through Catholic Teaching is now available, paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and I couldn't be more thankful and humble that that's available.
Yeah, that's great.
It's awesome. The other thing, folks,
is keep moving on up.
I know, this is awesome, brother. It's quite humbling. Now, if somebody would just read that book, I'd be all set.
Yeah, then
I can make my 24 cents per copy.
That's right, and you could be a New York Times #1 bestseller.
Brother, at this point, I'll take 10,145th bestseller. Listen, folks, I want to announce to you that Faith in Sport Radio now is supported by Carolina Crawl Space Pros. Homes in this area undergo moisture-related issues, especially in the upcoming high-humidity summer months. Humidity and excess moisture leads to wood frames to deteriorate, mold, buckled hardwood floors, and insect problems, just to name a few. Don't go to bed with crawl space woes. Call Carolina Crawl Space Pros today for a free estimate and an additional $250 off if you use the code word FAITH. For website and contact information for these guys, go to my page on Carolina Catholic Radio. That's Carolina Crawl Space Pros.
And say that 5 times fast.
I know, brother.
I dare you.
I'm always impressed a little bit with myself when I get through there with only minor errors. That's tough
I am
to do.
too. That's less editing for me to do.
I appreciate that, brother. Listen, let's bring on, man, there's too many things to talk about. This is one of those issues or one of those times where I wish that we had another half hour or so. But let's bring them on. Let's say Happy Easter to each other, and then we'll get into our discussion about all things sports, including our hit and miss. And that's Carlos Herrera. Carlos.
Lolitos!
Welcome back to the show, buddy.
Happy Easter. Great to be back. Thank you very much, Chris and Dr. Acquaviva.
Very good,
Litos.
brother. Listen, you and I talk about a hit and miss, and I hope because more and more people join us each and every week. They join us on demand, they join us on the radio, or they join us for a tape version of the show. And I think each and every week, the kind of the word's getting out. We got some local programs going on here, and I just hope that there's a couple new people each week. And what Carlos and I do in the first few minutes of our conversation, we talk about what is the hit or miss in the world of sports, something that is negatively impacting sport or impacts it in a positive way. As always, Carlos, you go first. Do you have a hit or a miss, brother?
So I have a miss, and it has to do with Deshaun Watson.
Okay,
and
let's hear it.
For those that don't know, he is a professional quarterback for the Texas Titans. And I had mentioned him in the last show, just in passing, that he was dealing with some possible off-the-field legal issues, namely some lawsuits that had come out about some sexual harassment related to massages that he, as a professional athlete, needs to be in top shape.
Yeah.
And some accusations by the female masseuses. And that right now has turned into a total snowball for him. He's got 22 lawsuits as of today related to accusations of a particular kind of harassment in that regard. And it really kind of has blown up. And the reason I bring him up is because of this. He had really kind of demanded probably several months prior to all this coming into the news that he demanded that he wanted to be traded from the Texans. He didn't really cite a reason other than the fact that there was some, I think, a general manager change. He sort of had expressed that he was unhappy with who they had selected or that he didn't have the opportunity to provide input. But as you and I know, it could be a combination of things. Usually it's related to money. They want to play for either a team that can likely, make a run deep in the playoffs or a Super Bowl run, or it's related to they want a new contract and somebody to pay him more money and to have more income in terms of a guaranteed contract or guaranteed funds.
That's right.
So bringing him up really brings up the question, and not so much about Deshaun Watson, but it is about character. Like the NFL draft is coming up in this month, and the question is, isn't it interesting that there are teams that specifically state that they want to hire character people and evaluate athletes with character highly in comparison or in addition to their physical attributes. And it's interesting how there are teams that will hire the physical attributes without really taking into account character, or they minimize that as not important.
Right.
Several players, Reuben Foster, 2018, he had 3 felony charges right before he was drafted that had come out, and which would have carried 11 years prison term. The 49ers had drafted them. I'm not exactly sure if this came out right after the draft or slightly before the draft. Anyway, he has not played in the NFL. Johnny Manziel, he was drafted with a lot of fanfare, was a Heisman Trophy winner, was drafted by Cleveland, but he had, before he had the Heisman, had gotten arrested for having a fake driver's license and for fighting. And as many may know, Johnny Manziel, he did not do well in the NFL, and he had a lot of off-the-field problems and a lot of on-the-field problems with his character. And he's not playing football in the NFL either.
Right.
Baker Mayfield, who got drafted a couple of years ago, playing for Cleveland, he was maybe considered just overly competitive and had some sort of character issues in terms of how he handled the opposing teams and some flagrant use of gestures. Not real bad, and he's still in football and is doing fairly well and has stayed out of the news for the most part. But I'll give you another example. Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, they were both in 1988 draft. One went number 1 and number 2, and one of the questions that some of the teams or reporters asked him is, to each one, what would you do if you were selected number 1? Well, Peyton Manning said he'd work hard and study the playbook. And Ryan Leaf, interestingly, said, well, I'm going to go to Vegas to celebrate. And, it's a minor question. He could have taken it seriously or not, but
That's right.
Ironically, rather indicative of what happened to the two. Ryan Leaf went on to be selected number 2. Peyton Manning went on to be selected number 1 in that draft. Ryan did go to Vegas, and Ryan subsequently was out of football within a year or so. And Peyton, as we know, has become one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah, that's right. Folks, we're talking to Carlos Herrera. We're talking about our hit or miss of the week. You're listening to Faith in Sport, where we look at sport through a Catholic lens, and Carlos is talking about character, and we often talk about character, ethics, and or morality as it fits into this conversation of sports. So it's a regular sports show that you've tuned into, but we just try to put in those 3 comments or those 3 kind of concepts into our conversation. And Carlos is about basically the NFL, but really all pro sports, right, Carlos, that there probably should be some greater tool to measure character, ethics, and morality in these players so they can do a couple things. They can forego signing a guy to a huge contract and keep money from just flowing into a situation that's going nowhere. But the other thing, of course, is basically feeding the monster. If these people are fueling their habit, fueling whatever vice they have through this contract, then not only does it worsen society, but of course it puts a negative spotlight on that professional sports league. And I think that's a good point. You're just using the Deshaun Watson as an example of that.
Yeah, let me just interject real quick. Our show is also for coaches, parents, teachers, refs of all ages, right?
Yep.
And character being one of the things that's probably one of the most important things in addition to the physical skills that kids are learning. And character just has to be taught. And obviously it comes first and should come first from parents. But as coaches, if you are not emphasizing character as part of whatever it is you're coaching, you're missing an opportunity to help create better athletes, better people, and better Christians, ultimately.
Absolutely, brother. Good final statement on that. Let's do my hit or miss for the week, and mine's a hit, and it has to do with basketball player Luke Garza. Luke is a basketball player for the University of Iowa, or was formerly. Iowa was one of the top 10 ranked teams all year. In fact, the last couple of years, and primarily because of this great player, Luke Garza. And he's made the news recently, and he's become my hit of the week because he got involved with something that is called an NFT, a non-fungible token. It's unique proof of ownership of a digital product, like a video clip or digital artwork. And then what the athlete does is they'll take this video clip, they'll take this digital artwork, and they'll corral it so they are the only ones who own this particular video clip or this particular image of themselves. Now that he is announced that he's going to go into the NBA draft, he is no longer confined to the NCAA rules that you can't accept any money, you can't get any money for name, image, and likeness and so forth. So he has stepped outside of that NCAA bubble, and now he's in the world of professional sport, so he can do something like this. So what he did was he created an NFT, and he raised over $40,000 from it. And to tell the truth, Carlos, I'm going to ask you, I had heard about this, but I really couldn't explain it until I really read about it in preparation for the show. Have you ever heard of something like this NFT?
I think in passing a radio show like this one, I probably heard something related to it, but I really don't know how it applies or even who made it and the relevance. So it's new.
Yeah, it is very new, but it makes sense. In other words, if there's a video of me, say, in a gym, and I mean this, in a gym, running from half court and then leaping from the free throw line in the air a la Michael Jordan and then dunking, but there's only one videotape of this, I could put this up for bid for somebody to own. And the deal would be I would not sell it to anybody else. You, if you bought this, would be the only one who owns this particular videotape. Now, when it's in the NFL or NCAA tournament, I don't quite know how that works. But either way, what Luke did was he took an image or a clip, he sold it, he made over $40,000, and he gave a portion of that to the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. Now, that's one thing in itself. That's a good move. This children's hospital has become known through the world of sport and so forth. But I particularly like this, and it's a particularly big hit on this show because here's a guy who hasn't really earned anything from the world of sport. In other words, there's a whole lot of professional athletes, and God bless them, but there's a whole lot of professional athletes that don't give any money away to a charity or to help somebody else until they have earned not just hundreds of thousands, but sometimes until they sign multi-million-dollar contracts. And here's Luke earning $40,000. It's a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. But he hasn't even become pro yet, and he's given some of that money back to a hospital. So that's a hit. I think that's a good token, and it certainly shows where his heart stands. So good for Luke Garza, and whenever you see him, tip your hat to him. Carlos, my man, there's something else, though, I want to talk about, and this was a runner-up. I wanted to be positive today and do a hit, but a miss continues to be Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred. And it's because of this. As everybody knows from last week, I think if your ear is to a radio or eyes are to a television in this last 10 days, you're aware of the following, that the Major League Baseball All-Star Game was pulled by the Major League Commissioner, Rob Manfred, a little over a week ago because of the voting law changes that the governor of the state of Georgia had passed and made into law. And of course, the biggest thing was it just requires people to have an ID to vote. Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred, they pulled it out of there. They took it to the All-Star Game to Colorado. Now, this is points that are made by Senator Marco Rubio, who is a senator for the state of Florida, said the following. And basically what he did is he publicly called out Mr. Manfred. And he said, quote, "I write to ask you whether you intend to maintain your membership at Augusta National Golf Club," of course, where the Masters took place this past weekend. "As you are well aware, the exclusive members-only club is located in the state of Georgia." And then Rubio went on to say the following, Carlos. He said, "Will Major League Baseball now end its engagement with nations that do not even hold elections, like China and Cuba?" And Carlos, I thought that was brilliant, and I thought this kind of magnified the hypocrisy of Major League Baseball, and in particular Rob Manfred. But you had a different insight. You tell me what we talked about off air, brother.
Well, I think it's incredibly hypocritical, and it's really just politics. This has nothing to do with baseball or anything. This really has to do with securing the election for the following 4 years. So that would be in 2024.
That's right.
For example, Biden lost Georgia by 12,000 votes. Won Georgia by 12,000 votes in 2020.
Yep.
part of what was declared is by the Republicans is that there was a lot of, it was very hard to guarantee that the electoral process was without issues. So here we go, right? This the MLB All-Star Game gets transferred over to Denver. Denver, from a population in downtown Denver, has about 9% black population. Atlanta has 51% black population. And Colorado's voting laws are similarly stringent as Georgia's. So on the surface, if you do a little bit of reading and find out some insight as to why they pick Colorado versus Georgia, it's really not about whether this was fair to the African-American population. In reality, taking the MLB game from Atlanta, Georgia, really is a PR move. It actually is going to cost African-American business people more money than the law probably in terms of similarity between Colorado than what Georgia has passed right now. Why didn't they take the MLB game to Detroit? Why didn't they take it to Philadelphia, where the population probably has a very equal balance to Georgia? It's baffling, and it's purely PR, and it's a long play to get negative press to a Republican state and the president didn't say anything, ironically, about the Masters not being moved as much as he said about the MLB moving, and that's kind of ironic. He was very quiet about that.
He was.
It's politics, people.
It is. Folks, we're talking with Carlos Herrera. You're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria. This is where we merge sport and virtue here on this show. So thank you for joining us today. A couple more minutes with Carlos Herrera. Carlos, we're talking about the issue that Major League Baseball took the All-Star Game out of Atlanta, Georgia, and moved it to Denver, Colorado. Another thing to be, kind of magnified here is not only the hypocrisy, not only the way it just reeks of pure politicizing a sport, but here is a sport that is, in all intents and purposes, every single poll over the last couple decades shows that Major League Baseball is hanging on by a thread to be just slightly more popular than hockey. And hockey has been long known to be very few fans, but fervent and dedicated fans. And baseball is basically just above them. And for Rob Manfred to make this move that is unjust, that reeks hypocrisy, that doesn't really make sense, that it's inconsistent. There's so many words that we can put on this, and act as though it was some move of benevolence or justice. It should, speak volumes to not only the fans of baseball, but for people in our culture, in our society. And I think stuff like this, Carlos, is thrown around so often now. It's thrown around with so much spin that I think it even confused the everyday fan, and it confuses the everyday viewer, for instance, of the news. They hear something like this and they're like, well, Georgia probably did something wrong. But folks, we're telling you here right now, Carlos last week made a great point. Look up the laws of Colorado versus Georgia. They're virtually no different. And I agree with Carlos. This is purely a political move, and it's really sad when it actually happens and more people don't catch it or call them out on it, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is really interesting when you talk about character, in politics, you really can't base stuff based on character, because politics, you use so many things to maintain power, right? So for either party. And I think one of the things that's key here is that you're calling out the president of the MLB, right?
Yep.
And he has a membership at Augusta.
Of course.
I would love to have a reporter do a little bit more due diligence. See, well, did he give up his tickets that he probably has access to, or did he buy it for his friends to send his friends to the Augusta National, right? To me, that would be a great question. If he's really a person of integrity and character, if he pulled out the MLB, right, he must have a personal belief that this was wrong, right? Yep. So I wonder what he did with his access to his tickets. Because I guarantee you, Augusta National, he gets access to I don't know how many tickets as a member to go, and whether he went or not.
Yeah, no,
that to me would be fascinating.
No, absolutely. That's a good question, because not only is he a member, Another thing that you mentioned about Biden, I saw the comment that he made on Augusta and whether the Masters should be pulled from Augusta. There is few, if any, sporting events that is more ingrained within a state in a particular city than the Masters is to Augusta, Georgia. In other words, it'd be like saying, can't we take Yankee Stadium out of New York? And I'm like, well, it really wouldn't be Yankee Stadium then. It would be something else. And we could use 100 analogies, but it still stands. And to Biden's credit, of course, he just goes, that's up to them. In other words, that would be a politically silly, and he would look silly as a president, but it would be a really poor political move for him to ask them to move out. He just said, well, that's up to them. Well, listen, brother.
Yeah, I think it's ironic that he said it's up to them for the Augusta National, Masters tournament, but for MLB, he told them they should move, and he was applauding that they move, and it's politics. In politics, you have to be educated and read up.
Yep, absolutely. Well, brother, listen, happy Easter once again. Thank you for your input. As always, really good stuff, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me on, and have a great show, John.
Thank you, buddy. There you go, folks. Carlos Herrera. He's a former youth director at a parish in the Northern Virginia area. He's currently certified as a youth soccer coach. He always has great insight. Longtime friend of mine, joins us just about each and every week. Folks, before we go to our weekend headlines, something I want to mention. I mentioned this last couple of weeks, and I said I would mention it for 3 or 4 weeks, and this will be the last week I mention it, but I want to strongly encourage you to go to the USCCB website, the United States Catholic Bishops website, in which they plead for you to sign a petition on the Equality Act. I first ask you to read the Equality Act, how it is against so many teachings of our Catholic faith in particular. And what the USCCB will do is they will direct your petition toward your state senators and your state politicians to not sign this act into law. Folks, you got to read about this. It's really important, and it directly impacts sport as well as a few other things. All right, folks, let's do this. Chris, let's do our weekend headlines. You got some music for us first.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition.
It's Weekend Headlines with Dr. John Acquaviva on Faith and Sport.
Here we go, folks. In the PGA, Hideki Matsuyama wins the prestigious Masters Golf Tournament. The RBC Heritage begins later this week. In NASCAR, one of Chris's great sports, he's a lover of that sport, I should say.
That's right.
Martin Truex took the flag in the Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500. I got through that without even stumbling. That was pretty impressive.
That's right. And my man, Chase Elliott, had a close second.
There you go. The Toyota Owners 400 is next week. By the way, I think that's the only NASCAR race that has 4 different names in the title. It's unbelievable. Right. It keeps getting more.
And next week's race is also in Virginia, in Richmond.
There you go, brother. NCAA men's basketball. Last week, Baylor convincingly beat previously unbeaten Gonzaga for their first national basketball title in history. So congratulations to them. We're going to come back around that in our conversation with Ed Billick, who's going to join us shortly after the break here. Major League Baseball. The season is in its second full week, and teams are already starting to assert themselves, including the Houston Astros in the American League and the Dodgers in the National League, who won over the weekend in an anticipated matchup between Clayton Kershaw and Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals. Kershaw, by the way, outdueled Max Scherzer, and the Dodgers won 3-0. So there you have it. Sports headlines that may or may not change your life, folks. Listen, stay tuned after the break. Ed Billick's going to join us. He's going to talk about the Masters, a couple of things sports, and one of the things him and I are going to talk about is our predictions for that Baylor-Gonzaga final in men's basketball.
It's going to be awesome, baby.
It was awesome, baby. And then one of the other things we're going to do is we're going to have Jeff Balister on, and he's going to come talk to us. One of his favorite sports is golf. We'll talk about some other stuff, including his view on the NCAA basketball tournament. He is the author of God Doesn't Play His Own Defense. So lots coming up here on Faith and Sport. Stay tuned, folks. So don't go anywhere. Chris, take it away, brother.
You're listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM WCGC. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Radio Maria Radio Network. So stay tuned for more Faith and Sport coming up right after the break.
Carolina Catholic Radio is an important evangelization tool in daily life. Whether you're in your car, at work, or working out, it's a great time to learn, love, and live your faith. Catch the Spirit. Prayerfully consider a tax-deductible donation today at carolinacatholicradio.org.
Carolina Catholic News. A bill making religious services an essential service is on its way to the South Carolina Governor's desk for signature. This bill allows for the continuing operation of religious services throughout a state of emergency. The Catholic Church, dating back to the 1500s, is in every county and is the third largest denomination in the state of South Carolina. The Catholic Church was charged with the founding of some of the first hospitals and schools in the state. Always an advocate for the poor and indigent, the Church has a massive ministry in social service outreach, meeting daily needs as well as every disaster. Food pantries have seen a 500 increase in need during the pandemic. Furthermore, the Church is essential not only as a place of worship, but provides mental and spiritual well-being, especially in times of uncertainty. This bill calls for the Church and her faithful members to never be treated differently than other businesses. CarolinaCatholicRadio.org news section has a link to the Religious Freedom Act. For the Carolina Catholic News, I'm Pam Cullen. God bless y'all.
Hello, my friends. I'm Christopher Check, president of Catholic Answers, and we're excited to work alongside Carolina Catholic Radio Network. We all know that Catholic radio is a great help to Catholics who desire a deeper understanding of their faith, but here is something you might not know. Many non-Catholics are brought into the church because of Catholic radio. That makes the Carolinas, where only 1 in 10 Christians is a Catholic, real mission territory. Let's get to work. Your listener-supported Carolina Catholic Radio Network is delivering every day the fullness of the truth, and I am looking forward to being there in May to help them with their vital ministry. I hope to see you at one of the events we are planning, and if you'd like to set up a Catholic Answers event at your parish, send a note to feedback@carolinacatholicradio.org. That's feedback@carolinacatholicradio.org. See you in May.
Hello, Carolina Catholic family. As a result of this past year's extraordinary events, tithing, donations, and monthly pledges came to a complete halt. This put us in a severe cash crunch to pay our monthly bills. The reality is that without your immediate financial support, this apostolate will cease to exist. Over the past 2+ years, Carolina Catholic has expanded its local lineup with 7 new programs heard every day at 5 p.m. We also feature Carolina Catholic afternoons that start with 1 p.m. Mass from St. Mark and conclude at 4 p.m. with the Clergy Corner and Homily of the Day. All programs are available as podcasts on both our website and mobile app. When last September's Eucharistic Congress was canceled, it was Carolina Catholic who stepped up with a 12-hour, 6-platform virtual fall conference. Upon completion, we committed to continue operating across all 6 media platforms. As a 100% listener-supported 501c3 nonprofit, Carolina Catholic needs your financial support now to continue operations. Please make your pledge to donate today and pray for the success of this campaign. God bless you.
And we are back with more Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM WCGC. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. And we want to rejoin our Radio Maria listeners on the Radio Maria Network. We're glad to have you tuned in today for Faith and Sport as well. I'm Chris, the producer, and once again, here he is, the host of Faith and Sport, the incomparable Dr. John Acquaviva.
Thank you, folks. Welcome back to the show. Listen, if you know somebody, if you know a coach, an administrator, a player, even a parent that is involved greatly in sports somehow, and you think they would lend a good story to this program, put me in touch with them. Write me at faithandsport@wingate.edu or tweet me at j.acquaviva1. And if you miss both of those, just go to the website, Carolina Catholic Radio, and you'll see some information on how to contact me. But I'd love to hear from you. Who would you like to hear from as a guest? Who would you like for me to interview, especially if they are greatly involved in sport in some regard, especially if they purposely weave character and ethics and morality into their teaching, into their refereeing, whatever they do in the world of sport. Listen, next week, Ed Billick is going to join us for about once every month. He's a special guest. He joins us in studio. I enjoy the heck out of when he's here, but he's decided to come on as a special radio guest just for a couple minutes because this was such a big weekend for sports, including the Masters. Here he is, Ed Billick, the sports guy for WBT Radio. Ed, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, guys. How's everybody doing on this wonderful Monday after the Masters?
No, it is. It's great. This is after Divine Mercy Sunday. This is still the Easter season. This is the Master season. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't enjoy it as much as I do other tournaments there at Augusta, but let me hear your viewpoint of it. What was your thoughts overall?
I was going to ask you that question because for me, the excitement just wasn't the same. And I don't know about you, John, but, I mean, no shot was predictable in this tournament. That ball would land on that green, and I wouldn't know which way it would roll. Now, I'm not out there studying the greens, but that was a tough course. Not only Thursday when it was dry, but even yesterday was it was so unpredictable.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Ed, because even though, the PGA will say, well, the course is to challenge the golfer, and of course it did. But there's a certain amount of predictability that the viewer expects. And this was highly unpredictable. I mean, the few times, it was always interesting when literally, and you saw several of these putts probably, when the player would putt with their back to the pin because they would hit it and then it would go at literally a 90-degree angle after about 10 feet. And you're right, the unpredictability may have taken something away from it. It'll be interesting to know what the TV ratings are when they come out in a couple of days. You think might be actually down?
Well, because a lot of big names didn't make the cut. I mean, Roy, the DJ,
right.
A lot of those guys didn't make the cut. And, of course, I mean, there were some young, exciting players. I tell you, I like this kid, Will Zalatoris, who came
American.
in second.
Yep.
He walked away with $1.2 million.
I know. It's amazing. In fact, it was just probably around 20 years ago, the winner didn't take away 1.2. It's really amazing how much
I mean,
money
John, I know you make a lot of money over there at Faith and Sport, but why don't you pick up a golf club? Because if you were the 48th player, you walked away with $31,000.
Hey, who's your guy? Is it Jordan Spieth? Is he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's your guy.
You know why? He's turned him on to me.
That's right. He's a former Cathlete of the Week. And everything he says, he's faithful to the teachings of the church. He's a regular Mass attendee and so forth. And I vote for him for that reason alone. My guy, though, is Phil Mickelson. And actually, he did very well. I think he was in the top 25. He actually finished even for the tournament. And under the conditions of the tournament, I thought he would consider, I think most people would say he did pretty well.
He's usually there. He's usually a hanger-on. He's 50 years old now.
I know.
That's amazing. So how else was your weekend, John?
It was really good, brother. I enjoyed it. It's really nice weather, of course. Spending a lot of time with the kids. It was the latter part of their Easter break.
How's that baby?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for asking. He is 5 weeks old as of today. He's doing really well. He's starting to become more alert. He's picking his head up. He's cute as can be. We're enjoying the heck out of him. And get this, Ed. He gave us 5 straight hours of sleep the other night.
Oh, beautiful.
And I don't know if you know how big a deal that was going back to when your kids were around and your grandkids are around, but that's a huge deal to both, Mommy and I. So good stuff. Thank you for asking.
Everybody's in a better mood the next day.
Oh, there's no question about it, brother. You get sleep, the day can throw a lot at you, and you can handle it much better. You don't get sleep, and you drop a paper clip, and you get mad at everybody.
John, a lot of our listeners coming off the Easter season, of course, and a lot of them love sports. There is going to be an occasion tonight which Steph Curry,
Yep.
the Golden State Warriors, is going to break a record.
Let's hear which record is that?
He's going to break the all-time Warriors, Philadelphia Warriors or Golden State Warriors scoring record held by Wilt Chamberlain.
Wow, that's impressive. That's really impressive.
That blows me away. First thing I say is, he's been in the league long enough, and I guess he hasn't yet.
He has.
I don't know in points per year compared to Wilt, but growing up, Wilt he was the man.
He was the man. But remember, brother, he also played for the Lakers and scored a lot of points for them. So it's not right. He didn't knock in all his points for one team. So that's probably part of it. But either way, you got to give credit to Curry.
Yeah, but the all-time leader for a franchise like that, the Warriors have been around a long time. But Steph Curry, that is very impressive.
That is impressive. Listen,
and he's a local Charlottean. You know?
Absolutely. No, he's a local guy here. This is great. Ed, before you go, I want to play a couple clips from a conversation that you and I had a couple weeks ago before the basketball tournament actually started.
Ooh, yeah, let's listen to that.
Yeah, and when you and I were predicting who's going to win, or in my case, I was predicting who wasn't going to win. Chris, hit that tape.
Those Catholic boys out there in Gonzaga,
yeah.
Pulling for them all the way.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not necessarily not pulling for them. I think they have a great program. Their coach is likable. Their teams are always – I just think their teams are always hardworking, and they are they're winners over there.
They have one thing to overcome, though, and that's the Sports Illustrated jinx.
That's right.
Because they were on the cover of the most recent. And now Sports Illustrated it's a monthly publication.
Yep.
But if they can overcome the jinx – and I'm not going to take time on the show to talk that. You can go Google that. Then they're the champs.
Yeah, I don't think they will be for this reason. I just think the pressure with every game that they win is heightened because the pressure to go undefeated. If they had one or two losses, literally even just one loss, I think that pressure valve would have been released, and I think that pressure just builds up. Plus, they're going to run into some really big buzzsaws, even though – as I think in that clip he mentioned, they beat some really good teams, but there was only a couple. Their league is ultimately relatively weak. And then not only did they win every game in their conference, but they won each one of them just about by 20 points. They would crush their opponents, and they're going to run into bigger buzzsaws in this tournament.
Yeah, because there's much stronger programs out there.
Very good. So that was you and I talking just before the tournament began, and you were agreeing with Ed that, agreeing with Dick Vitale that they would probably win the tournament. And I was saying, I think the pressure is going to mount. But more than anything, they're just going to run into a really big buzzsaw. So here's what I said last week, the afternoon of the final game between Baylor and Gonzaga. Hit it, Chris.
Go for it.
Gonzaga and Baylor play tonight to determine the national champ. By the way, if Gonzaga wins, they'll be the first undefeated team since 1976 to go the entire regular season and through the tournament unscathed. But here's the thing. I strongly predict Baylor will win this game tonight. So here's the thing. Now, this is a legitimate question, Ed Billick. If I were to make those predictions and Baylor were to lose big to Gonzaga, would I be replaying those clips? And the answer is...
Not at all. We'd be talking about the Detroit Red Wings.
We'd be talking about anything but the Detroit Red Wings,
now,
but you're right.
If we were in 100 years BC right now, you'd be a prophet. Predicting the coming of the Messiah. You were right on with that. And I told you about the Sports Illustrated jinx.
That's right. Tell us about it before you go, brother.
Well, Sports Illustrated was a weekly publication. And a lot of the stars, a lot of the teams never wanted to be on the Sports Illustrated cover until after a big event because many times they would choke. Whoever, they feature somebody and they would lose in a big game and they called it the jinx. And you could Google it. There's a lot of examples of that. But here we go with Gonzaga on the cover of the March edition. A great article. Go back and read it. I mean,
yep.
Really goes deep on the team, but I think it was all so the jinx was there, but Baylor was so strong.
They were.
That is one heck of a team. Well, don't you agree?
I would agree. In fact, I made
baby.
I made this statement the day of to a couple people, and they kind of looked at me actually like I was a little nutty. And one of the guys that looked at me clearly was, "And they gave you a radio show?" But no, in seriousness, Ed. After I saw that game, even to this minute, even though it's a week later, I think Baylor is one of the best champs of all time. I thought their team was terrific. They ran through that tournament, but they not only ran through it with each win and beating an undefeated Gonzaga, but the athleticism, the strength, the shooting skill that they had, and just the overall energy they brought to the game. It's rare that you see that throughout the tournament, let alone a championship game like that. I thought they were terrific. I thought they're one of the best champs, literally, in the last couple of decades.
One final observation, I'm sure you picked up on it.
Go ahead, brother.
The prayers on the court after the game.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a neat thing.
Both teams.
That's a neat thing, and that's one of the things that grounds those players is that they help put it in perspective, and they help put the minds of the fans in perspective as well. Like, folks, there's something bigger out there. There's something more important out there. Brother, that's a great way to end this conversation. Listen, Ed Billick, thank you for joining us, brother. Thank you for all that you do.
Look forward to hanging out with you guys in studio next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about St. Sebastian.
Let's talk about St. Sebastian and a bunch of other stuff. Brother, you have a good week, and we'll talk soon.
See you guys.
There you go. Folks, there you go. Ed Billick, he's a local sports guy here at WBT Radio. He joins us about once a month to sit in that chair and do the co-host special guest thing. He's always got great insight. Many thanks to Ed Billick because he just adds to the program like Carlos Herrera, and I'm so thankful for those guys that join us on a regular basis. Folks, you're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio. It's a co-production of Radio Maria. This is Faith in Sport, where we apply our faith to all aspects of sport. We have somebody else waiting on the line. He is Jeff Balister. He is the author of God Doesn't Play His Zone Defense. He was scheduled to be on the show a couple weeks ago, and we had a technical difficulty, so he's decided to come back. I'm thankful for him for that, and he's going to give us insight on some of those same conversations we had with Ed. But first, I want to give another shout-out to the folks at Carolina Crawl Space Pros. They're supporting the show this month. The hot and humid summer months, folks, are coming, and this could lead to mold, insect problems, and several other issues. Owner Jeff Wolf and his guys at Carolina Crawl Space Pros can come out for a free estimate. I know Jeff, I trust Jeff, and he'll give you an additional $250 off if you use the code word FAITH. So for website and contact information, go to my page on Carolina Catholic Radio. That's Carolina Crawl Space Pros. Jeff Balister, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you, man?
Doing great.
I'm just curious. Did you hear that introduction?
No.
Okay. It was a great one, man. You should have heard it. Jeff Balister, buddy, I just got off the phone with a guy who joins me on the show regularly here in studio, and we were talking about the Masters, but I'd like to get your take on that. You know, you're a big basketball guy. You played college basketball. We've talked about that a couple times that you've been on the show with us, but you're also a big golfer, and my guess is just because of your skill in golf that you're probably a pretty darn good golfer. But what was your take just overall of the Masters this past weekend?
Yeah, well, I was glued to the TV. It was great theater, and I think the neat thing about the Masters or any big event is that it's, it brings people together and also, creates hope, which is meaning, you can hope that your player wins. You may or may not have a friendly wager on, right? But I think in these times that we're dealing with now, just being able to bring people together and, texts flying around and phone calls and FaceTimes, I kind of look at it as a blessing of these great sporting events, bring people together, and whoever ends up winning, it's, just the camaraderie and kind of hope that that comes out of it. So I personally was hoping for Jordan Spieth or Mark Leishman.
Yeah.
But it was a wild, it always ends up being a wild finish, similar to like the NCAA tournament, how you never can predict the Masters. There's always intrigue and drama coming down the stretch on the back nine on Sunday.
No, it ended up happening yesterday. It looked like literally with 4 holes to go that Matsuyama was going to walk away maybe with a 3 or 4 stroke lead, and that just didn't happen. But I want to go back to your first point. I think that's great because you help put it in perspective. You help put sports into perspective, and that is sports can be seen from a greater, deeper, wider lens than we tend to look at it through. In other words, we tend to look at it through just wins and losses. Did our team or did our guy win, or do I have something to complain about because we didn't win, or even if we did, whatever the case is. But I particularly, you and I had a good conversation the other day, and you articulated in part just a minute ago that this is just something to be appreciative of. Heck, at this time last year, we were talking about the cancellation of the Masters. And granted, they did play it in the fall. Wasn't quite the same thing. I think everybody may or may not remember who actually won that. It was Dustin Johnson, correct, who won it in the fall?
Yep. Dustin set a scoring record, which is why I think it was a little more difficult this time. They made sure those greens were baked out and firm this time.
Oh, man, some of those putts just raced across there. But as much as anything, and I think to a lot of people, I always sound silly to them. I always sound like maybe I'm a little off base or something. But clearly, Jeff, what glues me to the screen when I'm watching is just the pure beauty of nature, and in particular, the people who designed that course. It's gorgeous. You could watch 100 other PGA Tour events, 100 of them throughout the world, and it would not capture the aesthetic appeal that the Masters have. Isn't it just beautiful when you're watching it?
It's amazing. Yeah, the attention to detail is second to none for sure.
And brother, have you ever golfed there?
I have not. I've been there for practice rounds. So yeah, I've been on the property but never played there.
That'd be quite an honor, wouldn't it, to be able to do something like that. I want to say I've met a couple people that have actually had the opportunity to play there, but either way, it would be an honor, and I think it's just terrific. And it was the tournament overall, it delivered, but I have my guy. It's Phil Mickelson. Sometimes people even laugh at me but the fact is he actually did pretty well. But I do have to pick a new guy, Jeff, because he's 50, and I need to pick somebody below the age of 40 that actually has a chance to win. And he could actually come through someday. But you know what? Overall, it doesn't matter. Going into every event, there's hope, and going into every event, there's excitement, and that's one of the great things about sport. Jeff Balister, let's switch gears. What was your thought of the NCAA tournament overall there too?
Yeah, that's another one that never fails to disappoint. I mean, I love it because it gives me extra time on the couch with my kids and family, and you're doing the brackets and bringing people together at the dinner table even more, just more excuses to teach and be a family. So every year people call it March Madness. I call it March Gladness because number one, it's part right in the middle of Lent, and we're trying to be more glad and attitude of gratitude. So I like to call it March Gladness. Plus, I was just glad we had a doggone tournament this year again. So and that it was, as every tournament, amazing. And believe it or not, our family is very good friends with the head coach of ECU, who was the only team that had to forfeit because of COVID, which was unfortunate for them, but a blessing that only one team, had that happen. But it's tough that they had to go through that. But we go through all sorts of tough things in life, and they'll get over it and be better for it. But it was, I love it every year. Glued to the TV, and did not disappoint. Disappointed for Gonzaga. They climbed the mountain again, but they ran into a buzzsaw in Baylor, which is just tremendously talented and extremely well coached. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. You come at it from some angles that it's kind of like when I hear you talk about these sporting events, it's just so wonderful to hear your outlook on it, because it's going to help those out there who are our age and take sport really seriously, or maybe too seriously. And in particular, Jeff, we all know we're probably like this a little ourselves. I think everybody is a little like this themselves. We equate a team or our player winning with being a winner, and then we equate losing or our team or player losing to being a loser. And of course, there should be no relationship between those two things, but it's part of the human expression, and in particular, our relationship that we have with sport. But you put it in great perspective that things like the Masters, this is God's creation, this golf course, certainly helped by man, right, to create some of the sand traps and so forth. But still, God was the creator there. And also this basketball tournament, it just should be something that our team in it or not, we could take a step away and just go, this is human competition at its greatest. It's pure excitement. It's pure energy. And the skill level is absolutely terrific. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. I have to admit, Jeff, I thought to a degree the Masters was a little bit of a letdown. It might have been because of the fast. Greens and that the scores were kind of funny. But overall, I enjoyed it. But I particularly enjoyed Baylor's run through it. And even though I'm a Michigan fan, and that was brutal heartbreaker that UCLA beat them as the 11th seed, beat Michigan. But still, I stepped aside. I stepped away from that, and I enjoyed the heck out of that. Listen, before you go, brother, I want to do two things. One, I want to publicly thank you for supporting our show for the past few months. And you did it through the promotion of your book, God Doesn't Play His Zone Defense. I want to encourage our listeners to get this book, but to find out more about Jeff and the book at goddoesn'tplayhiszonedefense.com. And Jeff, I want to have you leave us with this. Pull something like a quip or a story from the book to draw people closer to this piece of work of yours.
Okay, sure, real quick. So coming off the heels of Lent and Easter, there's a really great Catholic coaching story around forgiveness. So I'll leave you with that. So you've got everybody that is a listener, you know, in your local town, you've got the two, call it sports rival Catholic schools, right? And one school has Coach Vincent, yep, and one has Coach McCoy, and these guys compete, for dollars for camps, for kids to come to their school, for wins, and they always are competing, right down to for the Catholic League championship in whatever region that you're in. And it's funny, they greet each other before every game, kind of with noses in the air. Hey, Coach Vincent. Hey, Coach McCoy. Well, actually, right before one of the games, about a week before, Coach McCoy passes away. And so he's up at the pearly gates with St. Peter, and there's a big, long line of people to get in. And St. Peter's like, hey, can you help people get in here? He goes, well, I don't really know what to do. He goes, you just need to ask them, to spell Jesus, and if they spell it right, they're in. He's like, oh, wow, I thought it was going to be a lot harder than that. So, he's asking people, hello, what's your name? Spell Jesus, you're in, right? Well, about 8 people back in the line, Coach McCoy sees none other than Coach Vincent. He's like, what in the world? So Coach Vincent gets up to the head of the line. Again, they greet each other with, hey, Coach Vincent. Hey, Coach McCoy. He goes, what are you doing here? Yeah, well, I'm helping St. Peter get people into heaven. Coach Vincent said, well, what do I got to do to get in? He goes, well, it's pretty simple. You just need to spell one word. And Coach Vincent said, well, what's that word? Coach McCoy says, Albuquerque. So sometimes we have a hard time with forgiveness, but we should always remember, even if we're competing and, that we're all one together and, we need to be able to forgive and move on.
There you go, brother. Listen, thanks for your insight. Thanks for the few times that you've joined us for the show, and I really hope that when we extend an invitation that you'll come back on again.
Yep, thanks so much, John. Have a great day.
You too, buddy. There you go, folks. Jeff Balister, the author of God Doesn't Play His Zone Defense. Check him out at goddoesn'tplayhiszonedefense.com to order the book and find out more about why he wrote the book and a little bit about Jeff. Folks, listen, we've run out of time. We're going to have to come back to my PGA Golfer of the Week. But first, or I should say, but to end, I want to conclude with the great quote from JP2. Give thanks to our God for the gift of sport, in which the human person exercises his body, intellect, and will, recognizing these abilities as so many gifts of his creator. Before we go, I want to give special thanks to Carlos Herrera, to Ed Billick, and Jeff Balister for all joining me on the show today. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Please join us next time here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria for more Faith in Sport.
You've been listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradionetwork.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We've also been broadcasting across Radio Maria. We want to thank all of our Radio Maria Network listeners for tuning in to Faith and Sport today, and we want to invite you to tune in next week for more Faith and Sport when we invite our good buddy Ed Billick back to the studio for more Faith and Sport next week right here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria.